Going live. We are live on Unblocked Live, and it has been a crazy week in Los Angeles. A crazy month or 2 months, you might be able to say, because the streets have been fraught with violence to one extent or another. You know, this weekend we had City Hall. There was not just one stabbing, but there's other incidents. At least two other people in that crowd had metal objects in which they were pounding on other people. There was at least two people that were bloodied. One of them, a woman who was smashed over the head with a hydro flask. So there's a lot to parse about City Hall. I mean, I was there. I could tell you and the audience about it. But we're going to back up. We're going to back up to other incidents. We have the Wee Spa, which was at the beginning of July on the 3rd and the 17th. And then there was a big incident at Cedar Sinai. And after that, the protests at Harlowe. And that's where you come in, because my guest today is JR. And JR was involved. Online, you revealed yourself under a handle called Harlowe Incident. But am I accurate in saying that you attacked protesters that were expressing their First Amendment rights in front of Harlowe, albeit, a cause that perhaps neither of us, necessarily agree with? Is that a fair characterization that you attacked them?
It depends. It depends on your definition of self-defense. What set me off is that I was spit on. I was spit on after being verbally accosted when I was just walking through, literally just on a walk through my neighborhood. What happened was that I was walking through, I had a mask on. I don't believe that initially I was being yelled directly at, but this woman yelled right into my ear as I was walking by. So I turned to her and I said that she's a stupid bitch. And then she just started like screaming rather unintelligibly. Something
Well,
about
people don't like to be called stupid bitches, right? I mean,
people also don't like to be yelled at in their ear when they're just walking in their neighborhood.
okay. But you can
So
see there was a protest going on, correct? I mean, there've been protests going on since the beginning of last year, since May straight.
I,
We're on what 16th month of different protests that have been going on across the country, correct?
sure, but I didn't have any idea. I had been back there the day before as well and saw that there was a protest going on. But I didn't know that it would be going on the next day as well. And B, what does that matter? Their protesting doesn't mean that what now I should go around. Like if I don't want to get yelled in my ear, I need to go around. I need to adjust my life for them so that they can express their First Amendment rights. I mean,
Well, yeah, I mean, some people have been blocking traffic last year, and stopping cars in the middle of the street is protest. Some people have burned, business downs, businesses and buildings down to express their First Amendment rights. Right? Am I correct
but
in saying that?
those aren't First Amendment rights. Like you don't your right to free expression doesn't include being able to burn down a building. I mean, come on.
I agree with you. I 100% agree. Shall we say, I was just throwing that out there to see. I agree as
But
well.
to see but to
There
see
are
what
limits.
to see what though. So this is a thing that I've noticed with you, and this is a thing that I
Uh,
have a problem with.
okay,
I don't understand the impetus for you to even do that deflection that you just did. We're talking about one thing, and then you
right.
do a deflection talking about here's this other thing that happened that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. Let's
Well, it
focus
does.
on what
This
we're
is
talking about.
well,
What
we're
I
talking about
people
protests,
stopping
right?
people stopping traffic and burning down buildings has zero to do with what happened with me that day. It has zero.
Point taken. Point taken. But I would say the burning the buildings doesn't. But perhaps the stopping traffic does, because essentially your way was impeded. Correct. You were going through your neighborhood, and you did not like that now if the protesters had a cause that you were more sympathetic towards, would have it had the same reaction to you, or are you irked by all protests when it
No,
comes to?
no. I mean, it was certainly, yeah, there was certainly an accumulation of things that led to my reacting the way that I did. Yeah,
Okay.
it was not just about this one thing. Yeah, it was.
So what was it about? And let's just get right into it. As far as what was it was it about specifically what they were protesting, how they were protesting, a little bit of everything? What essentially
Yeah, a
brought
little
this
bit
on?
of everything. So basically, the way that it played out was it really started the day before. I was at Trader Joe's the day before, and as I was leaving, I saw the protest happening. I didn't know what it was, and
Okay.
some people that I didn't know at the time. All I saw at the time, what I understood was four strangers were chasing a woman across the street, and they like grabbed her and they like pressed her up against the glass, and it just looked to me like she was being assaulted. But there was a police officer like 15 feet away and somebody trying to call him over, and he looked back and he didn't do anything. So I just said, okay, I don't like the way this looks. I don't like people putting their hands on women, but I also was like, I don't know what's going on here. I'm not going to get involved. And one of them was one of the people who had her was like said something about citizen's arrest or she had assaulted somebody. So I
Okay.
let it. So I let it go. But but that's just not that's not something that I do very well. I don't. People grabbing a woman, men especially grabbing a woman and pressing her up against a glass. You've got to be. To me, there's got to be a really, really good reason for that. Okay, but I let it go. But it burned me up the whole walk home because I'm going, what's happening? What's going on? What was that about? So as I'm leaving, I saw one of their somebody had a sign that said it said like right now views or something like that. So I came home and I looked them up and I looked up their own footage that they were posting. I think I originally looked them up on Instagram is where I found their footage. And that's where I saw footage of their other protests. Not somebody else's story about the protest, their own footage, where I saw the little conflagration that they had with the woman who was a breast cancer survivor.
Mhm.
And that just burned me up too. Like, here's the thing about this entire protest, which my personal belief is we're starting off on the wrong foot if you're telling me that I have to engage these people in good faith because they're not coming from a good faith place. But let's go one step further and say, let's say I agreed with them 100% on their beliefs that this is about freedom and we should have the right to choose not to be vaccinated or whatever. They chose to protest a breast cancer clinic because the breast cancer clinic mandated mask wearing inside.
Right.
I don't give a shit what your freedom position is. Have some fucking basic human decency and say, that is not something that I need to protest for my quote unquote freedom. You're talking about people who have breast cancer, who are therefore immunocompromised to begin with. And you're telling me that I'm supposed to engage with you on a good faith level when you look at me and say you believe it is your right to be able to go out there and protest against a breast cancer clinic instituting a mask mandate.
Right.
How
So,
am I supposed to take that seriously?
okay. I understand where you're coming from. I think it is a little, shall we say, well, look, there's a larger story to this, which is that everybody is fueling each other's outrage and it's a two-way street here. The way that people have lost faith in media, have lost faith in regulations in the government, and this other side, and I know it's going to sound to you like I'm being an apologist. I just want to explain the full story here. A woman did go into that clinic who, my understanding is because Vishal is the one who shared her video, which she recorded of her going into that clinic and saying, "I have an appointment." This is a conservative woman who goes in, says, "I have an appointment. I also have an exemption from my doctor that I don't need to wear a mask." And the clinic kicked her out. Now, Vishal, stirring the pot, says, well, she was recording before she went in, so she planned this and that. That is neither here nor there. It could be. Activists in general on both sides are very theatrical, and I've noticed that on the right, on the left, and are some of them are attention seeking, and some of them do these, and some of them do unruly things, and some of them are in your way. I don't know what else to say except that this has been going on a lot. Your situation is not unique, and you know. This woman who went in there then organized a protest because she wanted to go in to the clinic and not with a doctor's exemption and not have to be denied service. So that's why they did it. The important thing about this story that people I don't think get is they're all the way on the corner. They're not right there by the entrance, so they're not harassing actual patients coming in and out. They've removed themselves, you know, this like a significant amount of space. You know, I want to say like 25 to 30 yards down. So the idea that they were there harassing patients as they're coming in and out is completely false. That's important. What's also important is that the group that shows up to protest is very much linked to the same folks that were at WeSpa that are of this SoCal Antifa, aligned group that are going up against right wingers, physically going up against them. And they had attacked them at WeSpa on the 3rd. The first physical attacks was this young guy that you know well now, Harlowe, in the sense that he's actually, showed up in your name, and we can talk about that openly. The thing that I have been set on is kind of diffusing this situation, because I don't understand why it's important for everybody to beat each other up. And I wouldn't be a journalist if I didn't ask you, do you regret using violence? Because ultimately that violence escalated. Vishal shows up, and he gets, more violence happens. Then there are more protests. We have LA City Hall, and somebody gets stabbed. And you might say, well, that has nothing to do with this. But this is all a connected, right activist, left activist beef that's been going on since the beginning of the year, escalated in April, when the Black Bloc jumped a right-wing live streamer within the crowd in Hollywood. Then a couple of knuckleheads that were from the right tore down a Black Lives Matter memorial. Then an Antifa account gets created on April the 28th. Then the WeSpa happens, where a woman complains of seeing a man somebody presenting male genitalia. We don't know if the person's transgender. We don't know if the person is a male that identifies as a male. That has not been confirmed by either the witnesses, LAPD, or the spa. But it gets made into this big, huge thing where Christian and evangelicals are beat up when they show up. Harlowe is beat up. I mean, and we can go talk a little bit about sometimes there are provocations. I understand that. Then the 17th happens. The two groups are ready to basically just roll up on each other and destroy each other. So you walked into a very agitated scene where people thought you were Antifa. Have you ever been Antifa? Were you aware of everything leading up to your appearance in this conflict? Striking someone, pushing them to the ground physically. Were you aware of everything that was going on in LA leading up to this, that you walked into that evening?
No. So to answer your first question that you began with, do I regret resorting to violence? Yeah. I mean, I regret resorting to violence every time I get violent. I mean, and to be perfectly honest and clear, I know that part of what set me off is that I've had to get in a lot of fights recently, mostly revolving around, it's funny that when people say that I'm Antifa or I'm one of these left-wing activists, one reason that I'm not, among many, is that I agree that there's just as much gaslighting going on by certain segments of the left and the Antifa with regards to certain issues as there are these people on the right. And one of them is the issue of homelessness. I I can never. First of all, I don't do good in groups anyway. But secondly, like I'm seeing these people on the left with regard to homelessness. I agree 100% that we need to be treating people humanely and figuring things out. But I keep seeing them say that homeless people do not present any danger, that there's no crime because of them, and I'm living through the exact opposite of that. And literally about once a week, I end up having to get in a fight with somebody who's on our property, either doing drugs or fucking or trying to break into something or stealing something. So I know that that's part of why I was keyed up already. I have been keyed up over the last couple of months. But so yes, I never want to resort to violence. I really don't. And if I had to take it back, sure, I absolutely would. I'm seeing all of these
Well, the comments.
Yeah, and
So, well, here I'll show a couple because it's important to know who there's somebody that's here who is an organizer who is chiming in. Who a lot of people are upset. You pushed someone over. I don't even know how many people pushed. I mean, we should say now. I mean, are you being charged with a crime?
not so far. Not according to the lieutenant that I spoke to at the West Hollywood Sheriff's Department.
Okay. And are you nervous about being charged for a crime?
No.
Do you think you committed a crime?
No.
You don't think you committed assault?
No. I mean, to my mind, as I said, it was self-defense. So.
Self-defense in what way?
In that, whether it was intentional or not, the woman who yelled at me spit on me as she was yelling, and to my mind,
right. So, but you didn't attack her. You attacked some other dude.
No, because I'm not going to hit a woman. I'm just not going to. And what
so
I
you
saw,
hit somebody else.
Yes. So what I saw in their videos was that they have a tendency to just move in a group as a mob. And I just decided if I'm going to engage these people and they're going to come at me as a mob, I'm going to start at the front and I'm going to work my way back, and I'll just deal with all of them one by one as I come to them. I know it's stupid. believe me, I know it's stupid, but that's what my very angry brain said in that moment. So
you were acting on anger.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. I have more questions about that, and I have more questions about the logic behind seeing a mob and seeing one person do something, or what you define as a mob, a protest. I mean, how many people were there about? I was there that night. I left 5 minutes before you were there.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, it probably only about 15 or so. I think.
Right. So, not a dangerous mob.
I was by myself. Have you ever fought more than one person at a time?
I've never started a fight I've never started a fight with a group. I mean, you do take responsibility that you started the physical action.
Yes, I started the physical action. Yeah.
Okay. Let's look at I do want to look at like a video clip here so that people understand. And I even think I have video of this group. So, well, you know what? So wait. So there is something here. There is. Let's see. Well, Stephen's a reasonable guy. This is Stephen Horn. He's a fellow journalist, colleague of mine. He says, even if you have been spit on, it's never self-defense to go and shove someone else from behind. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, if you say so. Like, what are we in a? Are we getting into like a legal debate now? I don't know. Like,
the legal definition is you went and assaulted somebody.
Like, look, if I don't believe anybody who believes that, I'm not going to change their mind here. I'm telling you where I came from. Okay, that's all I can do. Anybody who doesn't believe it, I don't really give a shit. Like,
So this is somebody that's from the scene. That's part of that protest group. This punk came from the back to hit a man. So you did approach him from the back. You blindsided him, correct?
I pushed the guy with the megaphone, Nick. Yes, and then I turned around and I went and faced every other single person that was in that group who came towards me.
How many people did you make contact with physically?
I don't know, maybe five.
5 people?
Yeah.
Any women?
No.
I'm going to show
No,
a clip.
I mean, I specifically went out of my way not to touch women, and even I even tried not to hit anybody who was old. There was an old guy that I went out of my way to pull my punch on, and he turned around and bit my thigh. So,
But I don't even know why hit anybody. This is why hit anybody.
yeah, you're right. I mean, look, in retrospect, sure, it's easy to say why hit anybody. The problem for me is I don't like bullies, and these people are bullies. They go and they bully people, and they get away with it because they're in groups. I got mad at that. I don't like bullies. I have never backed down from bullies. I'm never going to back down from bullies. So
I just realized I have a clip here just to show it because I think this is the same guy a little bit earlier who is on the bullhorn. Some would argue that you were the bully there, that you were the one who, physically stepped it up. I do have to back up to Cedars-Sinai. It's important to know that the first physical contact at Cedars-Sinai was made by Vishal. Vishal takes the bullhorn and he physically touches it. Now he's being yelled at, but also that group showed up specifically to confront the right-wing group that's been protesting. These right-wing groups that have been protesting, whether it's anti-vax, whether it's WISPA, they are consistently confronted physically by SoCal Antifa-aligned groups, the AARF, which is the Anarchist Front in Los Angeles. These groups, as a mantra, show up to shut it down, to give fascists no space to organize, no safe space for fascists. That was the motto on the posts for this weekend. Well, we saw what that was. There's no if there's no end to it, then you have someone who's dressed head to toe, this 6-foot blonde plunging a knife into somebody, and then all hell breaks loose after that.
Yes, and yes, that is obviously that is absolutely a problem. But I'll tell you what, I'm not Antifa, but I don't have any problem with any group who says no space for fascists. And I don't know what the fuck has happened to our society that this is even controversial. Now,
well, how do you know they're a fascist?
Well,
how do
that's,
you know,
that's
who gets to make the call?
Yes, of course, and that part is absolutely problematic. But from what I have seen on their videos, these are people who are largely, I don't know about the entire group, and I'm not even going to try to, but certainly there are people in these groups who are very clearly wearing extreme right-wing ethno-nationalist symbology.
And where was the last time you saw that?
I don't know. I mean, I watched the video of the thing on Saturday, and one of the guys had a.
There is one guy who has 2 lightning bolts. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, that was one of them. And there's
Does that one guy represent the whole group? You think? Did everybody know it? Did everybody consent to it?
No, absolutely
right,
not.
Exactly.
But also, so here's the other thing: a good part of most of these people are people who refuse to accept the results of the election. They think that Trump should be reinstated, and they and a good many of them, what I have seen on their boards, are like they believe that we're at war right now.
Believe that we're at war, like spiritual warfare. I think is the word I hear a lot.
I mean, I hear
sure what it means.
I've seen people in comments talking about like we're in a civil war, and that they need to start taking it up a notch. And in the immediate aftermath of my events, when I went back and looked on their pages, there were guys saying that I should have been killed.
Well, do you understand why they were mad? I mean, you physically, again,
you see how quickly you're willing to say, do you see why they're mad? But then when I say why I'm mad, you don't think that it's. Do you see the problem there?
No, there's no problem because they're mad because of a physical action that you took. You're mad because of a mass ideological or political reasons. To be politically mad but that's the thing. I'm not just mad about political reasons. If they hadn't been in my neighborhood doing what they did,
they never would have heard of me. I would have just maybe been seeing it from afar. This only happened because I went on my regular walk through my neighborhood.
So I was there a little earlier and I was shooting video. This might be from the next day or that day, I'm not sure. But I went to, and I just sort of hung out. I talked to some people there. At one point, I was before I had talked to anybody, I was sitting in Harlowe, and I'm just gonna play some video. Oh man. For some reason, StreamYard doesn't take the video straight off the phone. I have to convert it. Well, maybe I can still do that, but I did not realize that. That really, I wonder if I can. I was gonna play some video because I do have some video that I just shipped over to the computer from my phone. Sorry. I'll try to solve that in a second. Other questions. Now, somebody. There was a fellow that was trying to defuse the situation. He had a blue tank top, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember him in the long hair? And he was trying to keep the peace. And every time he tried, things would get, heightened again. Why did you stick around so long? In the sense that, then how did you end up in that alley? What was the point of all this?
I was walking home. That's how I walked there. That's how I walked home. They followed me. I didn't stick around anywhere.
Okay.
They followed me.
Right, but you had committed assault, so they wanted to stop you, correct?
So then what is your question? Why are you asking me why I stuck around and then telling me that they were trying to stop me?
Okay, I see what you're saying. So you're saying that alley was your path home.
Yeah.
In other words. Okay. Now, did you know Vishal? Had you ever seen him before? Or
No.
did he just showed up next to you?
To this day, I've never met the man. I've never spoken to the man. I don't know anything about him other than I now followed him on this Harlowe account on Twitter.
So
other than that, I knew nothing about him.
So
I didn't even.
Okay, sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm saying that there's some suspicion on the right because how did you come to Twitter and instantly follow all of the leftist scene on Twitter?
Well, it started by it actually started the next day. I actually went back on my regular walk again and didn't engage with these people at all. But I saw some of them across the street pointing at me and then filming me. So I was like, because I was ready to let it go. As far as I was concerned, this was a one-time thing. I was like, whatever. I got mad. I got stomped. I didn't have a problem with it. But when I went back the next day and I saw that they were doing that, I was like, okay, what's going on? So I went back to their page again, this Right Now Views. I saw what they did, and I looked up some of the people who were commenting, and I ended up going onto Twitter and finding Antifa Watch. And Antifa Watch had made some comment on it, and from Antifa Watch, I found some of the left-wing people who were replying back and forth, Chad Loader and Vishal.
So had you seen any of these accounts before? Had you ever?
No.
You'd never seen any of these?
Chad Loader is the one person who the name is familiar to me, and I'm guessing that I probably came across it at some point, but I had no idea. I don't.
Did you know Chad Loader is an Antifa activist, an Antifa organizer?
I had no idea.
Did you know that before us talking just now?
Yeah, I mean, basically after getting on Twitter and following him and following a couple other people, yeah, and you, I mean, that's what everybody on the right basically calls him the head of Antifa or whatever. But right. I don't know.
He's the foremost influencer and organizer and shot caller for Antifa, I would say, here in Southern California. But his reach has extended up north as well. He's gotten people fired up in Northern California for, this is, well, I don't want to get too deep into how you walked into see, all right. Tell me, first of all, what problem you have with my work and the way, because I'm against violence. I just am against violence. If I see it on the right, I call it out. If I see it on the left, I call it out. what problem do you have with me saying committing acts of violence, people need to be held accountable, and we can't, as a society, allow it to run rampant. So if someone like, I've never been in this situation where I'm talking to someone who, in my opinion, committed a crime, and here you are talking to me, and that's fine, but what problem do you have with me denouncing that and saying that's bullshit? What you did was total bullshit. What problem do you have with me saying that?
I don't have a problem with you saying that. I mean, that's your opinion based on what you've seen and what you know. My problem is that you have, from what I've seen of following you on Twitter as well, and then watching your podcast from the other day, you go out of your way to present yourself as an objective observer. And I'm telling you that if you are an objective observer, you are either wildly obtuse or not a very good reporter, because there is a very clear bent from where I'm standing trying to be an objective observer to the way that you present a story. And you do it in the same way that they do it, which is by omission. You tell a story via omission.
So what have I omitted from my reporting?
So, like, here's a perfect example of the way in which we tell a story, right? We deliver information in a certain order in order to give our audience first an understanding of how we want them to perceive the person we're talking about. On your podcast the other day, you said, here's this guy, he goes by Harlowe incident. He says, just a guy trying to go for a fucking walk. And then you show a couple of little key things about, like, little tweets that I've done since this event happened.
Right.
And like on one of them, for instance, you showed the part that said, do you guys want to, or y'all go get a rope and get the fuck out of our lives. You didn't show the rest of that tweet, which puts it into context. It sounds like I'm just saying, hey, everybody, go kill yourself, when actually what it said was, you don't want masks, you don't want vaccines, and you don't want a shutdown. What do you want? Do you want to die? Are you mad because we're trying to keep you alive? If that's it, then go kill yourself, go get a rope and get out of our lives. It's two totally different things.
I understand your point. I just don't think...
You also went out of your way, but sorry, go ahead. You don't think what?
I understand. I understand the point. I think that, honestly, a lot of your rhetoric, I didn't show some of the more violent things that you sent me in our conversation because we conversed. So I did not think that I was taking something so out of context to the tone of the rage that you sent in our personal exchange, and also can be seen in your Google Doc that rage, in other words, that taking that out of context isn't different than some of the other things that you have said, even to me in our private chat as well.
Okay, I mean, when you first asked me if I had a message for the people that I engaged with, what did I tell you?
Refresh my... Sorry, what?
I mean, you can pull it up. Pull it up and read it. I told you, all I want you to do is stop bullying people. Stop attacking and bullying vulnerable people. That's it. Like, I'm asking these fucking people who are very clearly not decent fucking people and pretending to be decent people to actually be fucking decent people. And they can't do it. That's the fucking problem. So yeah, that pisses me off, and it does fill me with rage. It does, yes.
And you're talking specifically in regards to vaccinations and...
the way that they go about their whole thing. Like, yes, you have a right to protest, but is it really just about freedom when you have a megaphone and you're screaming into a restaurant at guests who are trying to enjoy their meal? Is it really just about freedom? I'm not saying that means you deserve to be pushed over, but don't tell me that you're just these decent people when you're going out of your way to actively antagonize people, and you do it over and over again. Don't sit here and play the fucking victim. Don't do that. If we're going to engage on a good faith level, let's talk about what we're about. I'm telling these people what I'm about. I did what I did because they're pieces of shit and they're fucking cowards. And it made me mad.
Well, I mean, sorry. So
They want to sit here and lie and say it's about this, when it's not. It's fucking not. They're liars and they fucking know it.
they're liars and they know it. You don't think they believe what they believe in?
I think there's a couple people in that group. I think that they find people who are true believers and they intermingle them in their bullshit. Yeah, absolutely. That's part of the reason that these protests continue to go on. But some of the people in there, no, they're just fucking. They're looking for attention.
Well, I would say that about quite a quite a lot of protesters that I've had to listen
Yeah.
to over the last 14, 15 months. But
Look,
but
it's look. When I was younger, I was an activist, and one reason I stopped going to protests is for that very reason. I just felt like it felt like group therapy for people, and could never really get anything done. I did that in the lead up to the Iraq War and the Afghanistan War, way back when I was in college, and I got disillusioned, and that's why I will never join a group or be Antifa or whatever these fucking groups are.
all right, I'm getting a fuller picture, but I still don't. I mean, as far as the animosity that you could have to an entire group, as opposed to I don't. Where does that come from? I just don't understand it. How you can, if you're offended by a group or one person, that you would choose somebody in that group as a whole, because different people have different reasons for being at these things. Are some people the ones that you characterize, and does that necessarily mean that everybody is?
Yeah, no, I mean, yes, you're right. Everybody is there for different reasons, absolutely. And I do go out of my way to not get in the habit of demonizing entire groups. But if you're out there, here's the thing: they say it's just about, like, the Harlowe incident was about the vaccine mandate that Harlowe put in, but
Right.
they were also out there saying, wearing shirts that said COVID is a hoax, and calling me a pedophile because I was wearing a mask, saying that I had Satan inside of me because I was wearing a mask. Those things are separate, but they seem to follow these groups who are supposedly just out here fighting for our freedoms. So
So,
and I do have a problem with motherfuckers coming out and interrupting a private business to say that COVID is a hoax, because I know people who have died. And you're not going to fucking look me in the fucking eye and tell me that my reality is not real. And fuck you for even thinking that should be accepted. Seriously, fuck you. That's not a conversation I'm going to have. Not you, but
no, me. I'm like, me or them. Okay. Wait. So, just to back up, when you come onto the scene that day, so you have all of this brewing within you. What's the interaction? What do you're walking by? Are you stopped? Do you stop?
No, I'm just walking, and first the woman yelled. She yelled in my ear. I turned to her. I told her she was a stupid fucking bitch. She started yelling something about Satan and me being a pedophile, and then she got the spit on me. And I looked around. I saw where the dudes were. I saw the guy at the front with the megaphone, and I just said, I'm going to go to him first, and I'm going to turn around, and whoever comes at me, I'm going to engage with them. That's all it was.
So I'm seeing some comments. People thought maybe you were sent there, that you're part of Antifa, that you're some part of some sort of. It's so unexpected that somebody would respond that. What's your history with violence? Sorry I need to know that because earlier you indicated when you fight, this isn't the first fight that you've been in.
Yeah, no, I mean, I grew up poor. I grew up poor and in gang-infested areas. A white boy in very rough areas. So I had to fight a lot. I got away from it, thankfully, for many years. And it wasn't until this last year, with having to deal with people coming onto our property and people, threatening my neighbors and threatening my girl, and among many other things, that all of a sudden, like, just just more and more, all of a sudden, I'm finding myself getting in physical altercations. But it's not something that I enjoy. It's not something that I actively seek. I would be perfectly happy to never ever have a physical confrontation with anybody ever again. But I'm
And
also
what?
just
Go ahead.
there's just I have triggers like certain other people, and once I see that somebody or a group of people is a bully, that sticks with me because in my experience, bullies, you don't walk away from them. If you walk away from bullies, they keep bullying. They don't learn their lesson and go, oh, that person was the bigger person, maybe I should be too. No, bullies take you walking away as a sign of weakness and as permission for them to continue doing what they do. So now, do I have a right to be the one who defines what a bully is? No, absolutely not. And so when I did it, I suffered the consequences for it.
Have you suffered consequences? In what way?
I mean, I got stomped in the fucking street and they stole my shoe and my hat and bit my thigh, you know?
Okay. Um, tell me, there was a counter protester that was across the street. I told you.
Is this the,
Um,
the guy you were asking about the bunny
yeah,
mask?
he had a bunny mask, and he went another route. He went with humor. He had a bunny mask and a sign that said Antifa pointing to him. What's wrong with humor?
You know, there's nothing wrong with humor. Look, if I had planned the fucking thing, I probably would have gone with humor too. But
I think humor works better than violence. I mean, it's just my opinion.
sure.
Um,
But again, like I said, I'm not an activist. I did not leave my house that day going, I'm going to go stop a protest. It's like that was not my intent. I left my house like I do almost every day to go on this walk around my neighborhood.
when you see violence escalate, because you're talking about one incident, one person. When you see it on a mass scale, like we saw this weekend, how do you feel about that?
I'm a little bit terrified, to be honest. I'm a little bit terrified about what it means and where it's going to go. I worry people are going to die. I mean, let's be honest. I think I've only been aware of what's going on for 2.5 weeks now, and just what I've seen uh, in the videos that I've watched, people are going to die. It's going to happen. Um, that fucking sucks. And
It doesn't have to happen. So far, we're talking about in political conflict. You're saying that you are so cynical that you believe people are going to die due to political conflict.
I don't think I'm cynical. I'm looking at the way these people are engaging with one another, and I mean, here's another perfect example of what I'm talking about your reporting by omission. You were sort of talking about the escalation of things the other day, and you brought up the guy in Portland who had a welder's mask on. What was the pretty vital piece of information that you left off about that guy?
He had a welder's mask. I mean, he was one of the.
What else did he have?
I don't remember. I just remember the welder's mask. Did he have
Okay, so
some kind
what
of
what
club or
that
something?
that's a problem. The man had a fucking axe, Jeremy.
An
He was
axe.
holding
Okay.
an axe,
Right.
a welder's mask and an axe. And
Right.
this is somebody on the right wing side. Okay?
Sure. This is in
Now you
Portland
think you
at a right wing event. At a right wing event where Antifa was coming to counter protest the right wing. Well, no, it was a right wing protest. Is that right? I'm trying to remember. This is, I believe, at Planned Parenthood. They were
I don't
doing like a
re- I
prayer.
don't but I don't remember either, but let's just stop for a second and just think about it. A man showed up in a welder's mask with a fucking axe.
Yeah. It's pretty absurd. I
Yeah.
mean,
And you think it's cynical for me to say somebody's going to get killed?
well,
Like
how much of it is, that's the thing, is what's the difference between that and then someone says, so Antifa carries knives. In other words, someone in Antifa showed up with a knife and actually used it. Do you think that guy is ready to go on an axe rampage, or he's just being theatrical? I don't
I
know.
I think part of the problem is that a lot of these people are being theatrical. And then
Everybody's being theatrical.
well, but then there's a couple people who aren't, and who are treating it like a war. And they're the ones who are going to, they get amped up, and they're the ones who are going to end up hurting somebody.
So this is somebody in the right scene who believes that certain people are paid actors, which is funny because the leftists, I can't remember the woman's name, but Chad Loder was even on it, going on everybody from the right's explore talent accounts, thinking that everybody on the right wing is a paid actor. Nobody can take each other. Nobody even believes anybody's a real person anymore. Everybody thinks everybody is a paid actor.
Well, I do believe that there is some validity to the paid actor thing on the right, but I don't think everybody's a paid actor, and I don't think anybody believes that everybody is.
You and I are both out of work actors, or maybe you're working.
I'm not out of work. I'm working.
You're working.
Yeah.
All right, you're working. I'm out of work. No, I haven't been able to act. I've just been consumed with this because I was in Santa Monica on the 31st of May when it got absolutely just ransacked and destroyed. And I was surfing that morning. I got out and I just started recording. And I was standing there, in flip-flops. And I realized that I could walk around and people weren't looking at me. I had just been furloughed from my job. I was a cameraman at Univision, the television station. And I realized that I was able to film and get a story that nobody was covering, which was this mass, coordination, because Santa Monica was very coordinated as far as how it was ransacked. There's been moments of it's surreal. It's surreal because this was not 4 years ago or 5 years ago, the country that I felt we were living in. So the divisiveness, the polarization, and the lack of trust where people don't trust what's in front of their eyes, don't understand, aren't willing to listen. Like, are you willing to listen or hear people that are, are you like this with all conservatives?
No. I mean, that's the thing. I have good friends who are cops. I have good friends who are very conservative. But anybody who is A, saying that COVID is fake, or B, that Trump won the election, that's a non-starter for me. And because and it's not because I listen to CNN, seems to be their catchphrase. I've done all of their research. What they always say, go look at this, go read that, I've done all their shit, and it's all bullshit. None of it holds up. None of it.
No, I agree in the sense of, the election stuff, unfortunately, has been, it's the same kind of weaponization of information for partisan, in my opinion. But for them to believe that, does that make them indecent? Or if they believe that they don't, I think that's the word that you use, that there's something not decent about them for having these beliefs.
Look, that's where it gets touchy and tricky, to be honest, because part of my job is to find the humanity in anybody, in any character, in any person, and to find what motivates them and makes them tick. I am actually less angry at most of these people than I am deeply sad, because I know that they're being lied to, that they're being systematically lied to. I am enraged at the people who are continuing to perpetrate those lies and disseminate those lies, and the forces, I don't know what they are, but there are clearly very powerful forces behind it that are continuing to push those lies. Now, so the people who believe it, I feel bad for them. I feel bad that they believe that Democrats are evil, that we're communists, that we hate this country, that we're trying to destroy this country. I feel bad for that.
Well, no, wait. I just want to back up for 1 second, because this is where I think it comes. The story of what Antifa groups have been doing has not been told. So let's put yourself, again, if you're an actor and you're a trained actor, right? You've taken acting classes. Did you study theater?
Yeah.
Yeah, I studied theater as well. What's the first rule if you're playing a villain? If you're an actor.
Don't think of him as a villain. He's the hero. He's the hero of his own story.
Exactly. right? So that's the fundamental. And I knew you knew that answer if you were a real actor. You're not just someone who showed up in L.A., because you want to be famous or whatever. But if you are someone who studied theater, they were mentioning theater, and that was my major. Is that you when you play a villain, you don't exactly. The only way that it works is if you find what's human about them and why they believe what they believe. Otherwise, you're just watching a caricature. Why have you not been able to look at people who you are, I think, talking about as your political adversary and not put yourself in their shoes, not see that there's a breakdown of trust, there's a breakdown in faith in our institutions? Why are you not able to look at, or at least consider, or give them, is someone else here just wrote, this is it's not up to him to decide what he believes is decent. I mean, that essentially is what you do when you're an actor, is you don't judge the character that you're playing. Why are you so willing to judge these people?
Well, there does have to come a point where we accept that we live in a society. Like, I understand all of the distrust in government and in major mainstream media corporations. I understand that. It's just as strong on the far right as it is on the far left. What I see overall is a lack of understanding from people on both sides about the reasons why the other side has the fear and distrust that they do. The problem is that I have tried to understand these people, and I have listened to them, and when they said, go do this, go look at America's frontline doctors, read this about the election, do this, I have done it all. And it is all bullshit. It's all bullshit. And at some point, they need to have the self-respect to either realize that they've been lied to, and look at the very things that they claim to be evidence. They need to be looking at them more clearly, because it never holds up. That's number one. And then, or number two, they're fucking lying. And that's the thing, is that some of these people are just fucking lying. And when you talk about lies that result in people trying to overturn democracy, that, like, fuck you. I'm not gonna fucking defend myself with you. And the
What do you
fact
think?
that people,
You're talking about the Capitol. You're talking about the Capitol.
yeah.
What do you think the Capitol was about? Why do you think people went there? And what do you, because you even responded in our messages that once you found somebody was part of that really upset you. So
Yeah. So look, as with most things, there were thousands of people there. So an overwhelming, they had a lot of very different reasons for going there, right?
right, it was an arena-sized crowd. That's how I was there.
Yeah.
Reporting, and I described it as an arena-sized crowd, like if you went to go see a Laker game or something like that, 40,000 something strong. It was a lot more people than I expected, and certainly I didn't expect to see what I saw that day. But I think that the story that we get in. I think there's more to it when you have 40,000 people that are there. Then these are all people that are,
Sure. And I'm not judging 40,000 people, but a bunch of them, again, had right-wing racist attire. A man paraded through the rotunda with a Confederate flag. Like these people are claiming to be patriots, right? They're claiming to be patriots, and one of you is parading through the rotunda with a Confederate flag. If you're not offended by that, you're not a patriot. You're a fucking liar. Okay? Let's start there. Here's the other thing. If you broke through the police line and you poured into the Capitol, whether or not you were trying to overturn the election, or whether or not you were one of the people who were recorded saying they were going to kill congressmen, that they were going to string up Mike Pence, whether or not you were one of those people, you broke the law and you were part of that mob. So yeah, I got a real fucking problem with that. And that's not something I'm ever going to apologize for. And it's not something that I'm going to try to engage in a debate with on people. Fuck those people. Fuck them.
So again, I mean, we just went from lots of people there for different reasons to fuck everybody, kind of.
No, I said the people who crashed through the police line and stormed into the building.
Specifically.
Yeah. Because those people, they weren't there just exercising their, right? They had an agenda.
Do you think some of them were acting on emotion a little bit like you might have been?
I'm sure that they were. I'm sure that they were.
So, yeah. It's interesting.
And if they're sitting at home right now and they have realized that they've been lied to and they are not continuing to propagate that lie, then good for them. And that fuck you is not directed at them. But if they went home and they've been set free and they're now out with fucking megaphones trying to shut down a restaurant by spreading COVID misinformation, yeah, fuck them. Fuck them.
All right. I want to just back up for a second. So there's something that, when it comes to the Capitol, as far as why people, here's a unique observation. There were only 3 gun arrests in the vicinity of the Capitol on January the 6th. Only 3. And there were people coming back to their cars. One of them was marked Visitor Center. I haven't seen photos of people with guns. What I saw was the same tactics that have been used and that leftist activists have gotten away with for months on end being appropriated and used. And we see that time and time again. The guy who got stabbed had a skateboard. The skateboard, and he was on the right and he had a skateboard. I mean, that's been a tactic of the left. What we're seeing is this kind of cross-pollination of tactics. The Capitol insurrection looked, to me, as somebody who's been covering these protests, like all of the tactics that I had seen that Antifa had used. And you have to ask yourself, for a moment, what is it like to see people dressed in black shutting down protests, shutting down voices of people? And, this fantastical idea, you mentioned communists. It's not too fantastical. There are a lot of profiles on Twitter that are communist oriented, that are preaching communists. There are a lot of people who are coming out of college that are holding their fist up in not just in solidarity, but also because they advocate for communism or a form of anarchism, which is even more abstract. If you're a conservative and you've watched the country do this months on end with police being rendered ineffective, and most importantly, and this is what makes me mad, is our journalistic institutions turning a blind eye and not even covering it at all. If that builds and builds...
Are you not covering...
Antifa groups. So let me tell you just 2 anecdotes. On the 17th of October, I was in San Francisco covering a group called Berkeley Antifa that showed up at a protest that was organized by a young black man named Philip Anderson, who's a right-wing activist. And he'd kind of mixed it up a little bit, and they're online and said, I'm going to do this big tech thing. And he kind of, he bloviated about it and so forth, from what I gather. I haven't looked at it deeply. But what ends up happening is there's about a dozen of them that show up. He doesn't have any numbers whatsoever. And there are just, I would say 100 to 200 people that are dressed, like many of them that are dressed in black bloc. And they start systematically, they just start throwing things at the guy. Well, no, he gets his teeth punched out before the thing begins. He's called a fascist, and a hate crime is charged, I guess because he's black and the guy used the N-word, who was also black and he was punched. So he gets his front teeth punched out before he can even start this rally. They do the rally. They all have bottles thrown. Then the block, the counter protest, it's called, goes all the way around the block, and they jump Trump supporters, and they beat them. and send one guy away in an ambulance, and it barely is covered, at all. You have these roving. It's basically political gangism, where these people are dressing up and they're acting like a gang and they're committing these assaults. I saw the same thing on the 6th of December in Sacramento, where a young couple, one of them had a red MAGA hat, they were beaten up and curb stomped. And I see this guy in a black block jumping up and down. I still have the video and the photo of him walking away, and he has this big club, and they clubbed people. So if you see this going on and you get this information, and you don't trust the institutions because, CNN, MSNBC aren't, all of these, publications, the New York Times isn't writing about it. It goes on and on and on. And there's another sort of, and again, this goes back to our acting, right? If we're thinking about what is, if we're able to empathize with somebody from that perspective coming to the Capitol on January 6th, there were thousands that were not violent at all. The majority are not violent at all. You cited a t-shirt. Yes, there was a guy with a hoodie that said Camp Auschwitz, and that's awful. With everything that's going around, how many people had the time to notice or turn to that guy and say, hey, that, which it's terrible. It's awful. It's awful that this guy has this shirt. And on the back, it said staff. It's his, fucked up version of a Holocaust joke in this person's point of view. But does that person represent the whole entire, and I had it out with the leftists because they insist that everybody that was there at the WeSpa was transphobic on July the 3rd and July the 17th, and that they should be, and that they get to decide and they get to label that the people who are showing up and say, hey, I'm here for, if they're saying I'm here for election integrity. That's what I believe. I believe that our election system doesn't, because yes, there is a big lie and there is an exploitation. I agree with you on that. But then there are truths. There were, a number of false ballots in Georgia or charges. And I have to look at them again. I used to know this information better, but there were some 30 to 40 charges in Georgia for that had to do with it. But then when you look at it closer, some of them had to do with like a previous, special election. And so it gets complicated parsing this information because it's weaponized and it's put on social media and people don't know what is true and what is not. And the institutions aren't trusted. And so, somebody... who I'm going to talk about is there's Gina Carano, was this actress on Star Wars. Did you watch Mandalorian? Did you ever see that?
I saw the first couple episodes, yeah.
Right. So she used to be a fighter, and she was, she came on in the Mandalorian. She got mob attacked on Twitter for sharing a meme that was a little heavy-handed, but the meaning of the meme was that, what does it mean where people attack their neighbors and sick their neighbors on, and children are, ratting on people that, live next door to them and so forth. The question that was being asked is, what is a society does it mean when we embrace a culture of persecution? That's how I took it to mean. And ironically, she got canceled and persecuted for it. She also said in an anecdote that she voted for the first time at this election. And, it's true that it depends.
Sorry, say that again. I didn't
hear that. She voted
for
the first time. She voted for the first time ever in this last election. And she saw that, there were certain discrepancies and some of it is bullshit. All the Sidney Powell stuff and all of the, the Rudy Giuliani, my thing was just like, let them talk. Let them there's no reason to like it's, and Rudy Giuliani is there sweating his, hair dye out. And it just, the whole thing was a circus. And that's what happens is you get something with a little bit of truth where, for example, Gina Carano said that it was the first time she voted, and she wasn't sure by what she was reading that there was great integrity to our elections. Okay, so you have something that you have a little bit of a concern for, and then it gets weaponized, and then you have the president of the United States using it to his advantage and disrupting, our people's faith in institutions. I have a problem with that, I'll say. And I have said that because I was there on January 6th, and the person that was holding it all together was Donald Trump, the president of the United States. That riot doesn't happen without him, and I think that people who are in positions of power need to take responsibility for their actions instead of using information and the current information landscape of information warfare that we're in to their own political advantage and their own narcissism. And, we all knew he was never going to concede the election because that's just the kind of, personality he is. Now, people follow Trump for different ways. I did not know that. I went looking for white supremacists. I thought there were white supremacists everywhere that were causing civil unrest and burning things down because I had that sort of, shocked parent attitude of it couldn't be my child. It couldn't be my kid that's out there tearing down businesses and beating people up and jumping people. And, that's the attitude that I had. As someone who comes from the cultural left, is it couldn't possibly be that. So I went out to find these white supremacists, and the first place I went in June, as we're in the middle of COVID still, was this Trump rally that was happening in Tulsa, and I went and I talked to people and I interviewed and I looked at their shirts and I looked everywhere for Nazi symbols and I couldn't find them. And I looked for 2 days because I got there the day before. And the only thing I found was one guy. I was literally looking at everybody's t-shirt and everybody's tattoo. And I was, because this is what I thought. If these guys had infiltrated and were really wreaking havoc, and everywhere, wouldn't they be bragging about it? I found a couple of Proud Boys. And you know what the Proud Boys ended up doing in Tulsa? At first they were, heckling the Black Lives Matter protests and went by. Then they ended up smoking a blunt with this he wasn't Jamaican, but what was he playing? The word I was looking for, he had a Rastafarian head thing. And then he started playing Bob Marley, Is This Love? And then a couple of the Proud Boys started nodding their heads. And then two of them lit up with the Rasta dude. And the Boogaloo guys I talked to, and they weren't the white, they were all about Second Amendment. And the first Boogaloo guy I met was black. There were more blacks and Latinos there than I imagined because in my head, I was like, I'm going into some white supremacist rally. And it just wasn't it. And even the people with a Q flag, were nice, but they weren't, there was this hybrid, there was all this cross-pollination of culture and subculture, but I didn't get the sense that we were living in Charlottesville with ethno-nationalists ready to fucking tear down our democracy and install Nazism. And that's the false perception from the left, is that if you never talk to people, if you never go to one of these things and just talk to people and see and let them be heard, then you have this fantastical idea of what people at a activist right protest stand for. And right now, the activist left has the most outrageously fantastical idea about what the activist right is. If they're against mandates, they just don't believe that the government should be able to tell you what to do, how to run your business, when you're allowed to open and close your doors, what card you have to show in order to enter. I understand that. I think.
Well, wait a minute. Let's bring it back now then, since you're going to bring up mandates.
Yep.
They don't believe the government should do this, and yet they also don't believe that private businesses not affiliated with the government have a right to do it on their own. So what they're saying is they want their own definition of freedom.
Now that that is the point that I agree with you on. And I asked
yet what they will do is they will very vehemently say that I don't get to be the one who makes a decision that they're indecent, right? I don't get to be the one to tell them that what they did, that being spit on means that it's okay for me to react the way that I did. The hypocrisy is astounding.
I feel that that's an exaggeration. Were you spittled on or spit on?
It wasn't
that.
I don't know. I do not believe that she intended to spit on me.
So if it was spittle that came out when she was aspirating, just like stage actors do when you're in the front row.
When she was aspirating that I supported pedophilia because I had a fucking mask on.
Right, because you called her a stupid bitch. Correct? Right. So look, I think we all have to take our responsibility for the way that we engage emotionally and escalate things. Because when we engage emotionally, things get to there's a difference between premeditated, people that showed up on Saturday showed up for a fight. The person who provoked it showed up to do that. And it was somebody
who's the person who provoked it?
It was a guy named Ben who has a long history of he was looked at by the FBI for making threats and threatening a school shooting style thing according to reports and an arrest. The FBI took him in from East Los Angeles.
Yeah, and what did he do? How did he provoke it? Like the coward he is. Like the bitch fucking coward he is, like a lot of these guys, he went and picked on kids. He went and picked on kids first. That's what happened.
Now you're believing something that you saw on the internet that's not necessarily true.
You can hear the kids say it. You see him and you see the kids come over and say it.
Right.
The kids who are just skateboarding.
Those kids who are just skateboarding, guess who has the best video of the stabbing? They do. They're right there cheering the whole thing on with their phones. Though there's 3 kids, if you look at my video, that have surrounded them. So let's stop pretending that I mean, first of all, those kids were hanging out. Being an anarchist skater kid, you get the anarchist sticker, but also like hanging out with a black bloc. This has been going on since like the 90s as far as, No. I'm going to stop you because this is fucking bullshit. They're fucking kids, Jeremy. They're fucking kids. They were skating. Just and
stop
they were
it.
cheering
Stop
it
this
on.
Bullshit. Stop this bullshit. They were skating before anything happened. They were skating.
But there's
this
no
motherfucker
evidence.
And one other guy went and fucked with them.
There's no evidence that they were attacked. The bullshit is when Antifa and leftist groups say that these kids were attacked. The kids were skating around the periphery of, now I'm not going to suggest that they were working for Antifa or anything, but they were hanging out with that group. Then they were skating around the protest periphery. They were stopped and questioned by the militant types, but there's no evidence that they were attacked. The word that's being used is that these kids were attacked, and that's
I don't give a fuck if it was attacked or harassed. Why are you targeting kids? You fucking coward fucks.
How do we know? Because the kid said it. You know that the kid said it. We need evidence of that. That's what I'm saying.
The other guy in the fucking helmet is following the kids as they're trying to walk away.
So he's on the other side of the street. See, I was there. From my video, I'm walking from the LAPD headquarters and I'm seeing where the kids are going. I'm in that video in the background. I'm looking and I see the kids. They skate on First down. He comes from the other side of the street. He crosses, and you can see it in WYSIWYG's live stream. He crosses by himself in front of WYSIWYG's camera, and then within 30 seconds, the kids are skating on. Is it possible that he exchanged words? Yeah, but you want to know what else about this guy? He swung a helmet at a fucking homeless person. He pushed an old elderly patriot guy who came up to confront him, and one of these Duck Dynasty graybeards. He pushed him. He went up and attacked a radio reporter. This guy is off his rocker. I'm saying, why do you conclude that this person is, do I think he interacted with those kids and probably said something? Yes, based on the fact that he attacked 6 other people that day. Why is he representative, and why does he get our rage? Why is he allowed that when this person might just be a crazy off-hinge person himself?
Because one of the other guys on the right that later said in a video that he was with him, that he was a friend of his. Yeah, that is tourist guy says it on a video that he was with him.
So like, here's
you're
getting your stuff off of bullshit Twitter, leftist Twitter. Let me tell you,
I'm looking at videos. I'm looking at videos and listening to.
So this guy Lucas, who you're talking about, first of all, he's got his own sort of knucklehead. He thought I was Chad Loader. He's like, that's Chad Loader. Isn't that Chad Loader? And I'm like, what?
Why are you excusing the actions of these people when they are? You're saying
look, both of the people that you're mentioning were at one point or another were confronted within that protest crowd. These are problematic people. So this guy Lucas and his girlfriend, I saw being confronted an hour in the 1:00 hour. And 2 women were talking to them and saying, we don't want any trouble. We don't want any trouble here. And we think you're trouble because we know that, what you got into it at Cedar Sinai and you got into a fight. We don't want that here. So there are people. Now, the guy, Ben, who starts the whole thing, he gets kicked out of the thing after he pushes the old guy. Should have they kicked him out earlier? Would have they been better off to disassociate themselves from fucking troublemakers, problematic people who start shit? Absolutely. But are we going to judge everybody by the worst participant? That's the question that I'm asking you. Are you going to always say these people and judge them by the worst, most unstable or attention-seeking knucklehead that's within that group?
Don't we do that about people on the left? I'll tell you one reason that I don't go to protests, that I don't take part in BLM protests anymore, is that if I were at a BLM protest and I saw a bunch of guys stomping on one person, I would jump in and stop that too, because that's cowardly. That's bully shit. People going and fucking burning down buildings, that's bullshit. Yeah,
I agree with that.
And if you are in a group and you have a bunch of people within that group who act that way, have repeatedly act that way, and you let them join you in what is supposed to be a peaceful protest, yeah, that's on you, motherfuckers. That's on you.
So what happens at the end of this is something that I did a podcast with a guy named Brett Weinstein who does a podcast, and one observation he made of the Capitol crowd was he said this crowd is very bad at policing. Obviously, when a guy ends up there with a Camp Auschwitz shirt or whatever, that there is a very poor amount of calling out within. Now, I saw it with the 2 people that we just mentioned, which is the Ben guy who apparently knows the Lucas guy. I saw it that the crowd was questioning whether they were instigators. I mean, the guy who started it clearly, started it, and I couldn't see it from my vantage point. While I'm walking down, the reason I have the trees is I got threatened. I got a stabbing threat. So from the leftists, and I made that. I was very public about it, and then Chad Loader felt that if I wasn't going to show it to him, that I was somehow lying. Chad Loader's not my editor. I don't have to answer to him. But the bottom line is I got a threat, and it was a threat from a woman who tried to sick the mob on me on the 17th. She's like, and she called me Quincy, who Quincy is a different conservative, like not that I'm a conservative, I'm not, but there's a guy named Quincy who I think is a conservative live streamer. She's like, it's Quincy. And she's tried to get people, and this is because a guy named Andrew, who's like this grad student from UC Berkeley, posted my face and said I was a Capitol stormer. So everybody would think that I was, someone who should be targeted at protests. So she tried on the 17th to send the black bloc, and I just had to say, look, I live in this community. I first came here in 2003 to this part of LA. I am here as a journalist, relax. And it was only because the black bloc was busy, going up against the police that they all didn't come after me. But this exact person said that fascists tend to get stabbed and that it would be best advised for me to not show up at another protest and so forth. So that's why when I'm approaching, I have my camera on the trees up above because I'm checking my back, I'm looking around, it's a volatile situation. The kids go by me, they're skating. I don't know. I didn't see that's before they had gone by a couple seconds earlier. I was looking to see where they were going, that they hooked up into the Antifa group. Now they're saying, the Antifa leftists are saying that these kids were attacked. I have not seen evidence of that. What we all have to be aware of is a lot of people are lying. And a lot of people are trying to get other people upset so that they'll come back to the next protest, that they'll see the enemy as the enemy. And it happens on the right, too. The people on the right try to gin up animosity as well and say that these people are the enemy, these people are the enemy. And some of them are genuinely there to shut down right wing's ability to organize. Don't give them the space to organize. Don't, shut it down. No safe space for fascists. These are all mottos that are iterated time and time again, along with propaganda. It's called propaganda of the deed, and the old anarchist scene in the late 80s into the 90s were about propaganda and making perpetuating it in order to instigate social revolution. So it is if there are social revolutionaries and social revolutionary, agendaists within this leftist scene, people who actively seek it.
But who are, they have no power. Everybody's like.
But see, Chad Loader has power. These are, some of them have influence.
Is he a politician? There's a huge difference between a bunch of fucking people running around at protests who think that they believe in communism and the fact that my problem with the right, which is that it has that ideology of the election being stolen and that Democrats are communists, has filtered all the way into people in actual power, actual Congress people. And an entire party refuses to refute the big lie because they're afraid to piss off one man. You're going to fucking sit here. You're going to try and tell me that these two things are analogous? Really?
Well, I think that they're their own, each is their own brand of terrible, in my opinion. It's in other words, the Republican Party bowing to Trump and kissing his ring, despite everything that is the way things have played out. Yes, I think that's terrible. And then I think that people who turned a blind eye to the sort of the radical, the illiberal part of the left, and that includes people that would go up and punch people that they disagree with. The illiberal left that says that you cannot express your opinion, I find that equally as terrible. Yes.
What I find terrible is people with free reign going about and thinking that their right to freedom means they get to harass and attack vulnerable people. So
look,
we just disagree on that. We have a disagreement about what is considered acceptable and what is considered decent. And I don't.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I've noticed is that it can be a setup. Let me give you an example. The first two WeSpa protests were violent. These were right-wing organized protests where the left showed up to violently shut them down. It's just That's just what happened. That's just.
I mean, look. I'll be honest. I don't want to talk about WeSpa because
Okay.
I wasn't there. I don't know anything about it. Like,
But I just want to point out on the 31st, the left held a WeSpa concert, and the right didn't show up at all. I think that that's significant, and I'll tell you why. Because the rumor out there is that right wingers are just running around assaulting people at will. And I think what's happening, from what I've seen, is that, Cedar Sinai, for example, if you really look at the tape, the left makes they go to show up and they make the physical, contact.
So hey, let's just really quick, because I want to go back to that real quick, because this is another thing that I don't understand about the way you talk about this.
Yeah.
She has have you ever had somebody yell into your face with a megaphone?
Right. So that's, yeah.
And so what you do is, when you report on it, you say, well, the person on the left made the first physical contact by moving that out of the way. That's the first physical contact.
Somebody who's supposed to be a journalist too, who's not filming, but who says that they're a journalist and they're not filming.
Whatever the case was, he and that woman were talking to somebody else, and then she charged over angrily with her megaphone and started yelling in his face, and then he moved it out of the way. Right now, what you did is that you used what the cancer survivor woman who then
she does a body move and she bumps her off of the sidewalk.
You use that as an analogous situation to what that MMA fighter guy did to Vishal in the alley with me.
So I called that. He confronted me. I saw him and he said, "Hey, Jeremy, was that a punk ass move?" That's what I said. I said it was a punk ass move to go up behind. It was a fucking
punk ass move.
Yeah, that's what I said.
It was a fucking punk ass move.
That's what I said. And I was, I was like, oh God, do I really get into this right now at City Hall? But I think this is the thing. I think I'm consistent in that if you make physical contact with somebody, you're crossing a line.
Okay, but wait. You're telling me that those two situations where after Vishal moved that woman's megaphone out of the way, and then the woman lunged at her and the other woman got in her way, you're telling me you believe that is analogous to what that guy did, where he specifically went out of his way to get behind Vishal so that Vishal would back into him when he wasn't looking? You're going to really sit here and tell me that you think those things are analogous as an objective reporter? Really?
So here, you're talking about two different things. They're different degrees. They're different degrees of severity. As far as being initiating factors to escalating violence, they're the same in that they're initiation. Just like you,
you're either stupid or you're lying, Jeremy. You're either stupid or you're lying.
Just like you initiated when you went and pushed that guy over, who had a bullhorn.
That's different as well. That's my initiation was obviously
worse. So you're worse. Let me get this. You're worse than Vishal because he just moves a megaphone, right? So you're worse than that, right?
Yeah.
Are you worse than the guy who comes up behind Vishal and lets him run into him? Or are you the same?
Like what's the game that we're playing here? Like
you set it up. You're the one who told me.
I'm telling you that because you said two things were analogous. Okay, I'm not saying, I'm saying that the way you presented it on your podcast before to suggest that they were analogous is bullshit. Because one is a clearly premeditated attempt to set up an excuse for violence, and the other one was a woman moving to keep her from moving forward. They are two completely different things. And part of my response, again, has been predicated on this is what these people do. They do a certain thing for the camera, and then they do other things to try to incite violence.
Okay. All right. So I think that you're abdicating responsibility for what you didn't want to. You want to talk about what other people are doing, but when I bring it back to you taking the first action, you don't seem to want to take responsibility for that. Are you?
What
Are,
do you mean?
are you?
No, I fully take responsibility for it. I
Are you
still, but
sorry for it?
I
Are you sorry for attacking these people?
no, no, I'm not. No,
So
I'm
I
not.
don't. Doesn't sound like you take responsibility for it then.
You can take responsibility for something without being sorry about it. I know what I did. I got stomped for it. To me, I'm like, that's a pretty fucking fair recompense for what I did.
Okay, so
That's the way I saw it, and that's why I was willing to let it go. They're the ones who continued it, who then harassed me in the street, who then followed me home. That's the only reason that we're here right now having this conversation. I didn't show up at another one of their protests.
Do you think there just needs to be some measure of whether it's civility as far as people not intruding on other people's space? Because I would agree with you on that. And that could mean, protesting without harassing, because we can, if we go through people's actions, I've seen on the left and the right, protesters, take on the role of harasser.
Yeah.
Do you think we need more sort of, I guess, cultural protocol when it comes to that, and the sense that you don't touch someone, you don't physically? Do we need more cultural protocol in the sense that you don't attack someone, you don't physically batter somebody who's in a political protest, because then that gets used as propaganda by the other side and so forth, and then you have whole populations associating their political adversaries by the worst action. And in that case,
yes. Yeah, I mean, look, to clarify again what I said before when I said I wasn't sorry, I am sorry about I'm not sorry to those people, because they're fucking pieces of shit, and they have proven over and over that they're pieces of shit. So I have I have no any sort of sorrow for them. But just in terms of what you're talking about, that idea of we need to have more civility, yeah, I do regret that, and I am sorry for that, in that I certainly broke what I believe is the way that we should engage with people. Absolutely.
I just want to point out that you just said we need more civility in regards to those people that are pieces of shit. is what you said.
Yes, because so, once again, we do have to decide as a society. We do have to decide that there is a line, and to me, they crossed it. And not only did they cross it repeatedly, but they are unrepentant about it. So I'm not going to sit here and be unrepentant because I got physical with people who are shitty, bullying fucking people who harass vulnerable people.
You are unrepentant. It was what it sounds like.
Yeah, I said I'm not going to be repentant towards them.
Not to be repentant.
Yeah.
Well, I mean that puts us at the end of the line then, where it doesn't seem that you're interested in seriously looking at them in the way that I think you're capable of. If you're an actor, we talked about it. I think you're capable of more when it comes to dialogue and not just acting out in, emotionally, so to speak. You rubbed off on me I've never had a podcast like this where I got, I felt that I started to lose my focus, and I get loud, and I appear very angry even when I'm not necessarily. When I get passionate, I get loud, and it sounds like I'm yelling angrily even when I'm not. Although that's not to say that I haven't gotten angry in this. I obviously have. But, I'm going to say something. The only people's actions we can really take responsibility for ourselves, right? I mean, I can't make somebody see the world like I see it. I can't force you to become a pacifist. You're going to have to come to that decision on your own. I can't beat somebody into, using the correct language or not having the thoughts that I think they shouldn't have. This authoritarian approach is what worries me. Is there some truth in saying that there is a better way that we need to find?
Sure. Absolutely. There, you know, but like I intimated to
And
you
that and that
before,
ultimately we can only take responsibility for our own actions.
I disagree with that. We live in a society. We live in a community. We have to. This whole idea that we're all just individuals is a bunch of bullshit. Like let's fucking grow up a little bit. We have to make a decision as communities and as societies about who we are. I don't have the interest or ability to do it on a national level or even on a civic level. All I can do is I try to look out for my neighbors. I try to be a good community member and look out for my neighbors. And if people come to my neighborhood and they're bullies, I'm going to react in the way that I see fit. And that's really what it boils down to for me. And I understand that there's going to be a shit ton of people who don't agree with that. I don't care. Like, like I can. Are there contradictions in what I'm saying? Sure, absolutely. Part of the problem is, yes, I am emotional. I got emotional that day. But having the more I have gone and seen these people and seen what they have done since that day, uh, I have only felt uh, reaffirmed in my belief in what I did. And like I told you, after they started following me, okay, after they harassed me on the street, not at a protest, on the street, me just walking down the street, and then followed me home, didn't want to engage with me when I challenged them. When I challenged two of them to their face and told them that they were cowardly fucking bitches and that if they wanted to prove me wrong, they could do it right then and there, they didn't do anything. No, what they did was they waited till I left and then tried to follow me home in a car to find out where I lived. And then Harlowe, 2 days later, is walking down the street in my neighborhood, putting up wanted signs with my face on it. He walked right by me. Now, you want to talk about civility and you want to talk about what happens when you don't do anything? He knows. I could have beaten his fucking ass to the curb unrepentantly. I could have put that little shit in the fucking hospital if I wanted to. Or at the very least, I could have harassed him. I could have yelled at him. Ask him. Ask him what happened. Because the answer is nothing. I let him walk by and go do his thing. Did he learn a lesson? Did he learn a lesson about what it's like to let somebody vulnerable go, no matter how strenuous you feel about it? No. He showed up on Saturday, and there's a video of him trying to kick somebody who's got all press gear on. So, yeah, sometimes you got to throw a punch. Overall, would I like to be a pacifist? Absolutely. But I'll tell you, I'll give you an anecdote that I like that has to deal with Nazis and fascists. There was a bar. I lived in Oregon for a little while. And there was a bar that I used to go to regularly. One day I'm there, I'm talking to the bartender, and this guy comes in, seemed like a nice enough guy. He sat down, and bartender came over and just threw him out right away. He's like, nope, you can't come in here. And the guy's like, what? I didn't do anything. And the bartender said, nope, your friends are fucking Nazis. You don't get to come in here. And the guy was like, okay, and he leaves. Now, there were quite a few white supremacists in this area that I lived in. So I asked the bartender, I was like, what is that about? And he said to me, you let one guy in here, and he's nice, and he's friendly, and everything's fine. Then he brings his Nazi friend in, and maybe he's nice, and he's fine. And then before you know it, all of a sudden, you got 15 Nazis hanging out, and then they're not so nice, and they're not so fine anymore. And sure enough, a bar a block down the way that didn't do that became the Nazi hangout. And anybody who they didn't like, who looked wrong, all of a sudden wasn't welcome in that bar. Sometimes, when there are people who express that ideology, you have to nip it in the bud before it gets a chance to flower. So I'm not going to apologize to anybody for my belief that these people, whatever their ideology, they are infiltrated by white supremacists, by people who are would-be fascists, and just because they're not wearing Nazi symbolism.
Hello? Are you still there? I'll take some comments, perhaps. I like the Bill Burr comment. Someone said something about Bill Burr. I thought that was funny.
on their shirt.
Oh, is it? Hello? Can you see me? Are you there?
I don't know if you can hear me at all, but I appear to have frozen. My screen is frozen. So.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I just
Oh,
want to
I can.
bring in a
I can.
colleague here.
I.
Sorry,
I.
I don't know where we were. Altruism can't be formed in the hearts of others by force. It's simply not possible. Um, what do you think about that?
I think that is a very pithy and probably largely accurate or correct statement. Yeah, I don't think um, that you can force others to be altruistic. Yeah.
Um, has this conversation been productive at all, in your point of view?
Uh, I mean, I don't know. Like what to be honest, like what I still hear from you a little bit is apologizing for them or doing a little bit of
Who's them?
whataboutism
Who's them?
for people on the right. Anytime that we talk about something on the right, you seem to sort of cage it a little bit in what seems to me to be an apologistic fashion. So, you know,
Um, you were talking before you froze, and someone is asking like, who are these Nazis? Who are these white supremacists? This has been a question that I've had. I mean, I told you about how I was looking for white supremacists everywhere when I was, investigating the right wing, and I just didn't see that. I saw people who have a different perspective, and I don't I don't know why I have to be labeled an apologist for anything. All I'm doing is talking to people and talking to people who are, trying to express their points of view, sometimes well, sometimes poorly. And I just don't see I don't have the degrees of moral outrage and you know, I don't have the feeling that I'm supposed to get somebody to see the things the way I see things. I think that people see things very differently. I think the way that societies are split between conservative and liberals has to be 50-50 for a reason. In other words, that there's this kind of, I see it as a very yin yang kind of thing, that people are wired differently, that just the way that they're born, and the way that someone posted collectivism versus individualism, that some people are just wired to see the world in a more collectivist point of view, and some more are sort of, trumpet individual freedoms over that. And I can't help but think that there is something a little bit more primal as to why we are the way that we are. The issue that I'm having is the misinformation. You've quoted a couple of things which when do we cross into really understanding who our adversaries are, or believing the myth that is being spun? And right now there's so much misinformation on each moment, and each worst actor is being weaponized to kind of bring out these psychotic responses
yeah,
from the tribe.
yeah.
I would say.
I absolutely agree with that. I think you're right, and I know that my response didn't do anything to alleviate that in any way. I'm telling you is that from my perspective, listening to you, not just here but in the other podcasts, what I see is a bent. It is a slant that seems to me to be one that is protecting their perspective. You can disagree with it if you want.
No, I will say I don't think I think that we need to listen to political adversaries more. And if you find that biased, then that's fine. I think we need to listen to people who don't see the world the exact
no,
same
but
way we do.
don't do that. That's not what I think is bias. I'm talking about like when we get into telling certain anecdotes, the way in which you do it, to me, shows a bias that you may not be aware of. To say that like we need to listen to both sides, that no, I don't.
But that's
there's no
exactly what
bias
I'm
in that.
doing. That's exactly what I'm doing is I'm trying to do what we were both taught in theater school, which is put yourself in the shoes of the people that see the world differently than you, or that you may even react with an emotional reaction to how they're acting, and say, well, why is that person yelling? Why is that person, you know, uh, taking the rhetoric to such a heightened level, and what is it that they distrust about, institutions, and why is it that this person thinks that, okay, this person probably thinks the exact same thing you do. You know how you just said your little anecdote about the bar and nipping it in the bud. Did it ever occur to you that someone else might say, hey, it's this little bar here that's doing this, and then next it's going to be the Trader Joe's across the street, and next you're going to have to be showing your card, everywhere, and this is overreach and this is government, that there's a perspective there. I agree with it a little bit, but then I also agree with you. And the question that I asked the organizer was, why are you protesting in front of a private business and antagonizing private? Why aren't you protesting at the city hall? Why aren't you protesting at the, or wherever it is that you want to make this point in the halls of government? And the answer to that, in my opinion, is very simple. You get a more attention this way. These are, crowded places where you can protest safely in a nice, affluent West Hollywood. And there's even a balcony or a porch area there where you can bother people while they're having a drink. So there's the showmanship of it. We live in LA, and, and there's a lot of people with excess drama under their belt. I'd say, I don't know. I don't know that I'm an apologist for anyone. I just try to let people be heard. I'm letting you be heard. There's risk for me having my face next to you right there. I'm letting you be heard. That's what I do to
Why
you.
why is
I'm
there why is there risk for you to have your face next to mine?
Because you attacked people that are going to see this, and they're going to see me next to you, and they're going to associate me with you. And I'm okay with that because I know why I'm here talking to you. I'm here talking to you to get your perspective. But you understand that I'm the one that has to also, they may be not coming back to your neighborhood. I'm the one that's going to be at the next rally walking through a crowd of Proud Boys, I'm the one who's going to be at the next rally walking through a crowd of Antifa, as well. And, they already have it out for me too. The point is that, yes, I am in this persecution by association, this culture of persecution by association. Just me being in the same frame, with you is going to allow somebody to screenshot it, weaponize it, and say, hey, this is the guy that talked to the guy that went. That's the culture that we're living. But you know what? I don't give a fuck. And that's why I'm talking to you. The same reason that I talk to other people. And the same reason that I let them be heard. Because I'm not here to judge them. Ultimately, I don't have that power. And even if I did, I'd be fronting. I'd be just doing it for my own self-righteousness. So I'm sick of it. I'm sick of this culture. And I'm willing to hear you just like I'm willing to hear them. So, you can judge me if you want, or have problems with me, or find me an apologist or problematic, but I let everybody be heard, and I'm going to stand by that, Is there anything before we close this off? Someone says mentioned your manifesto. Is that an accurate description to call it a manifesto, your Google Doc? Is that something that you needed to do emotionally, or that you actually have an ideological standpoint that you want to share?
My ideological standpoint is don't be a fucking bully. you know, like don't be a bully. And if you're a bully around me, you can expect that I'm going to intervene. That's the only ideological manifesto I have. Like that document that I had was just because quite frankly, I'm not good at the internet. So I was like, I didn't know I wasn't going to try to write a whole bunch of tweets. So I wrote that because I was seeing all this misinformation of people saying that I was Antifa or that I was a plant. And I was like, all right, let me just nip that in the butt. Like, The only thing, if people are going to talk about this about me, the only thing that I really care about is like, I, what I want them to understand is that I'm not, like I said, this was not ideological, and I understand that people think it was wrong, that I committed a crime. I understand that people think that. I just wanted to say this is how I was acting
Wait,
solely as an individual in his community. That's how I was acting.
so you
So
don't think you? Sorry, you don't think you committed a crime? Is that?
no, I don't.
Um, okay. Um, I mean, there are laws, right? As far as when it comes to assault, right?
Sure. Here's what I'll say: if I committed a crime, then so did Jason Lepkowitz, so did Nick Yaya, so did Jess Weber, and a bunch of other people whose names I don't.
How did Jess Weber commit a crime?
He stole my shoe. Isn't
Okay.
that's robbery, right? The guy
Yeah.
who's supposedly just a reporter who doesn't get involved.
Right. He took your shoe. Yeah. No, that's 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 that's
So
true.
if we want to talk about crimes, like I'd be more than willing to go in and have a court case where you guys they charge me with whatever crimes they think I'm guilty of, and then I press charges against them for the crimes that I think they're guilty of. I'd be happy to. That's why I talk to the police. Like if it were really about law and order, like I'm happy to go and do it. That's why I talk to the lieutenant that I talk to.
Sorry, I'm confused about what these crimes are. Trying to subdue you and make some sort of citizen's arrest. Is that what they
So,
said?
well, if you go back and look at the video,
Uh,
after I got up, let's just call when they're stomping on my head while I'm on the ground. Let's just call that a wash, right? Whatever. But once I get up and I'm walking away, and I am not a threat, and nobody's telling me. Did anybody say, "Hey, stay here"? This is no. Nobody said anything. In fact, people were telling me, "Get out of here." So I started to walk away. I was pushed from behind by Jason Lefkowitz multiple times. If what I did to Nick Yaya was assault, so is what he did to me.
yeah, I mean, I don't think any of this physical violence is good. I just, I'm exhausted. It's late, and I haven't eaten, so I'm gonna go get some food. But you know, after what I've seen time and time again, and what I saw at City Hall, um, it doesn't feel like it's going in a good way unless we can find out as a society, as you said, how to reel this in,
Yeah.
and that means the emotional and physical reactions, all of them.
I
You
mean,
know,
it is hard to. I know you want to go, and I don't want to. I'm not going to try to launch us into another conversation, but it is hard to have a conversation with people who refuse to accept what is pretty easily acceptable reality. You know, like even if they have been lied to and they've been propagandized, that's it's pretty hard to have a good faith conversation with people who want to tell you that COVID isn't real, that it's a hoax, and that the election was stolen. You know, it's difficult to do that, right?
I do think that when it comes to when you get into COVID hoax stuff and heightened rhetoric, I start wondering how much of it is trying to trigger, you know, people and make a scene, and how much is really believed. There are, for example, outdoor masks have never been proven to be uh, effective, or there's been very little documentation that outdoor transmission is a huge risk, especially if you're just, there's all these nuances to the information when it comes to COVID itself. that due to the lack of trust in institutions and some terrible reporting also, in my opinion, people have seized upon little discrepancies and shoddy reporting and politicization of all this. And then it becomes this kind of, it becomes dialed up and somewhat performative. And I agree with that. But I'm not the enforcer. I don't think anybody should be to walk up and push somebody or attack someone or cause a scene, because that just escalates to more violence. And you know,
what you're seeing with these school board meetings where people are not doing that, nobody's stopping these people, nobody's doing what I did. What is happening at these school board meetings? You're getting school board members and doctors being threatened by people showing up to these meetings.
Yeah,
nobody's punching them, right? They're not doing it as a response to violence against them. They're doing it because they've been so worked up that they think that they know more than the doctor who is trying to tell them how to keep their children safe, and that they're going to threaten them and send people after them.
It's frustrating. I mean,
it is complex, and there is no easy answer, and certainly running around punching people is not an answer. But being a total pacifist, unfortunately, at some times isn't the answer either. And
well, I'll take it over running around punching people. So
well, I don't plan on doing it anytime. Again, like I said, I'd be more than happy to go the rest of my life without ever throwing another punch. So.
All right. Well, let's hope for that. And wherever we agree and disagree, I'm glad that you have this conversation, and I am going to offer equal time to somebody who is there who wants to speak for that group, and they can come on and talk to me as well. And that's what this podcast is about. And you know, I appreciate it, and thanks for joining us. And please, sorry, just looking at the comments.
It's that fucking idiot.
It's probably not really. I mean, you get fake accounts. I mean, okay. I don't think it's really. You get trolls. This is the other thing. Please understand, a lot that comes out is bullshit on the internet, in comments, in tweets, and it's weaponized bullshit, and people do it for attention. They do it for the likes. The system of gaining engagement is ruining us all. So don't believe anything that you see tweeted without checking on it first. Especially, don't get mad about it. That's going to be my final word here. My guest has been JR. This is Unblocked Live, the anti-polarization podcast. Everybody stay safe, be good. Thanks for joining us.